Hi everyone and welcome to a new video. So I'm starting with the base dress, which I have already made 2 videos on. I'll link those 2 in the description below. So this is some leftover EVA foam that I had from my Wonder Woman costume, which I'll also link in the description box below. And basically it's just some cheap EVA foam from eBay, and I think it's 2 or 3 millimeters thick, and I just traced out an outline of the shape that I wanted with some chalk. Once I had my rough shape, I went over the lines again with chalk to make the lines more defined so I would know where to cut. Then I simply cut out my piece, and keep in mind that I was using scrap EVA foam left over from my other costume, so I couldn't cut out the piece all in one, so I actually had to cut 4 pieces, 2 for the front and then 2 for the back. So I sort of maneuvered the pieces around to try and get the best fit on the scraps of foam that I had left over. So it was a little bit of a puzzle and piecing together things to try and make everything fit. So here you can see me trying to extend one of my pieces, and the way I do that is I line up where the edges meet and cut them on a diagonal, and then that's where I'm going to glue the pieces together with hot glue. And again, here's another way that I pieced together my panels so they would be the shape that I wanted them to be. So for this example, I cut out a little triangle piece to stick onto the end of the larger weird shaped piece. So here you can see me hot gluing the edges together, and this will form the panel pieces that I'm after. And once the glue is dried, you can see that it's the perfect shape. Moving on to covering these foam pieces with my fabric. So this is the same fabric that was used for the dress. It's that crushed pan velvet, and it's 100% polyester. It's not real velvet, I wish. Anyway, I simply pinned my foam pieces down onto the fabric and then cut quite generously around the edges. And at this point I wasn't too sure how I was going to cover the pieces, whether I was going to sew the fabric into tubes and then cover the panels that way. But instead what I ended up doing was gluing together all of the foam pieces. So here I'm gluing the V that is in the center front, and I also glued together the back panel pieces of the foam as well. So then I'll have the full foam structure, and it has an opening in the back, in the center back. So here you can see that full foam thing. I don't know what to call it, the neckline, the full foam neckline. And then with my fabric, I ended up laying this over the foam, and again, this is all scrap material left over from the dress, so I had to really piece together things to make it work. So I didn't have just a long strip of fabric that I could use. So here you can see me trying to map out how I'm going to use the fabric that I have left and cover up all of this foam. So what I ended up doing was having a seam down the center front where the V meets in the middle of the bodice, so I'm just sewing that seam now. And I also sewed 2 seams on either side where it falls just off the shoulder. So I'm lining up the center front seam on top of the V, pinning that down, and then working my way outwards and making sure that there's no puckering or what do you call it, like weird fabric bunching up anywhere. So I tried to keep the fabric as smooth as possible. And I also cut a slit just where the V is so the fabric could easily fold over into place. And then pinning all of that down. And I wasn't too concerned about how messy the inside would be. Yeah, I only really cared about the outside. So I did stretch the fabric quite a bit over the foam, and that's to keep the fabric taut and to make sure that everything lies smoothly on the outside. And a quick progress photo to show what the outside looks like. And then I simply hand stitched all of the edges down, and for this I used a prick stitch, or it was more like a back stitch, I guess. Yeah, so back stitched all the way along, and I sewed through the foam as well. So it's not just the fabric, it's also through the foam. And at the edges, at the back, where the center back is, I just folded the fabric over and tried to reduce as much bulk as possible. Yeah, so I just continued doing that all the way around. And finally, after quite a long time, all of the edges have been sewn down, and then I just trimmed the excess fabric that's on the inside, and I did leave quite a bit of excess seam allowance just so I could sew that down later on, as you'll see. So I overlapped the seam allowances, and then I whip stitched all of that down. And because this is the inside, I didn't really care about any raw edges, and I didn't care about the neatness of my stitching. So this was really a rough job just to tack everything down into place. And as I whip stitched, I also tried to go through the foam as well, and I did not go to the outside of this neckline thing. So I only sewed through the 2 fabric layers as well as the foam layer on the inside, but not the fabric layer that's on the outside. So now all of that's sewn down, and you can barely see the whip stitches on the inside, so it really doesn't matter if the stitching is messy. And even on the outside, like, my stitching was pretty messy, but no one can tell. And now onto the embellishments. So I bought these embellishments off, or these trims, I don't know what to call them, off eBay, and they're from China. And I don't actually think this is for sewing. It's probably jewellery, for jewellery makers or something. But yeah, I wanted to find something that would match the Guinevere costume, or match it as close as I could get it to, because I did look at lace options, which was very expensive, and all the lace was quite big, like the floral and leaf details were quite big, and I wanted something quite small and delicate. So here I'm cutting from that chain thing, and I cut 3 little flowers into a bunch, and then I sort of bended I don't even know what this is, I bended the chain thing so the flowers would form a little triangle, and yeah, I thought this was a nice touch to the leaves. And I also cut out some single ones as well. Actually, I think there's only one single flower on the neckline thing. All of the other flowers are in groups of 3. And then with the leaves, I just started cutting out different, oh gosh, the words escape me, different bunches of leaves, and arranged them how I thought they would look nice, pinned them down, and did the same for the flowers as well, although I couldn't really pin down the flowers since they're not something you can pin into. But yeah, this was just to get the general placement of these things. Yeah, I wasn't really following the costume from the TV show when I was doing this. I was just doing what I thought looked nice, and also keeping in mind that I did not have that much of these leaves and flowers to work with, and I did want to keep some for the sleeves as well. So yeah, and the sleeves video is coming next after this one, so if you want to see how I made the sleeves, yeah, make sure to subscribe, and I'll post the video next week. I usually post videos once a week, so the sleeves will come out next after this one. And there'll also be like a sneak peek of the sleeves at the end, if you want to see what the almost final dress looks like. So yeah, that's that. And once I had pinned down all of those leaves and flowers, I sewed down the stems of the leaves with a back stitch. I didn't sew down all the leaves, I just sewed down the stems because I did want the leaves to have a sort of 3D effect, where they sort of lift off the fabric just a tad, yeah, to give it a little bit more interest, I guess. And yeah, I really like the way that little 3D details stick out of garments. So yeah, just a nice touch in my opinion. And this took quite a while, and my fingers were so sore after doing this. Yeah, I worked on this over multiple weeks. Yeah, usually at night time while watching TV. And yeah, and I used white thread because the leaves that I got, even though they're supposed to be gold, I ordered gold, they're more of like a whitish gold, and I thought they looked quite green against the burgundy red colour of the fabric. And I was contemplating whether or not to paint the leaves gold, which, spoiler alert, I did. I did paint them, but that comes later on after I've sewn them all down. I didn't want to paint them gold and then sew them down with white thread because that would look ugly, and I don't have gold thread. Oh, and the white stitching on the inside, again, I don't care what the inside looks like. So yeah, there were quite a few white knots on the inside of this neckline thing. I honestly don't know what to call this. I was thinking of calling it like a Bertha, you know, like the Victorian style dresses with a Bertha type of thing off the shoulder. Or I was thinking of calling it a collar, but it's not really a collar, so neckline it is. Anyway, here I'm pinning down the leaves across the back of the neckline, and I didn't put as many flowers on the back because well, my sister, who's going to be wearing this costume, she'll have her hair down her back, so I don't want her hair to keep getting caught in these little flower things. Anyway, here I'm showing you how I sew down these little flower clusters. So basically I sewed little loops around each of the gold joiny things that join the flowers together. So I just went round and round and round the little gold chain thing, and then moved to the next part of the chain, and then went round and round and round that. So by the end of this process, this is all I had left to use for the sleeves. And yeah, so that is all of the embellishments sewn down onto the neckline. The back is pretty plain compared to the front, but that's fine. My sister's hair is going to be covering that. And then, as I said, I decided to paint the leaves because I didn't think they were gold enough. Now, the actual costume from the TV show, I can't really tell what colour the leaves and flowers are because sometimes they look white or orange depending on the light, and yeah, I couldn't really tell. But considering that all the other accessories that are going along with this costume are gold, it just made sense to paint the leaves gold as well. And there is that gold chain underneath each of those flower clusters, so that ties everything together as well. And I really do like that the flowers are still a really bright crystal white, yeah, because it stands out from the gold just a tad. And this is some leftover gold paint from, again, the Wonder Woman costume. This was the very last, these were the very last drops of the paint, actually. I was struggling to get some gold paint out. So yeah, using the last of what I've got. I did end up going back to the shops to buy more gold paint because I'm thinking of repainting one of the Wonder Woman costumes. But we'll see. I don't know yet. So many projects, so little time. And I also painted the leftover leaves that I had for the sleeves, simply because this was the last of the gold paint I had, and there was no way I was going to be able to get more gold paint out of the tubes when I needed it for the sleeves. So I just decided to paint them. Yeah, so that's all of the leaves painted, and this was actually really fun to do. I enjoyed the painting process a lot more than the actual sewing of the embroidery. I don't know, why do I call it embroidery? Embellishments. So next I needed to pin this neckline thing onto the dress. After doing this, I realized that the V is off center, but I don't care. So yeah, there's not much I can really explain apart from I put the dress on and pinned the neckline thing down. I couldn't really pin the back for obvious reasons. Yeah, I wish I had someone to help me. Anyway, yeah, just pinning. And then, once I knew the placement of where this neckline thing was going to go, I sewed down the edges. I sewed down all along the bottom of the neckline, so that bottom edge, and I didn't bother with the top edge because that has nothing to attach to, because that's the one that's directly against the skin. And I used back stitches, pretty messy, but it does the job, and you can't tell how bad the stitching is from the outside, which is a good thing. And then for the back, I had to trim away some of the excess thing, what you can see here. Yeah, I had to trim some excess away on both sides, and I let the thing overlap over the lacing just a little bit, but I didn't want to sew it down, like I didn't want to sew along the bottom edge over the lacing, because then I wouldn't be able to, you know, take the lacing out and relace it when I needed to. So yeah, I left that edge open, but I just tacked down in certain areas on the back. And yeah, I just sort of really messily, I don't even know what to call this stitching. It's definitely not whip stitching. It's like a hybrid of everything. It's just stitch everything down, cover the foam, make it look decent-ish type of stitching. Yeah. Sorry, I'm really bad at explaining things. It's late. Anyway, then I just cut off the little excess sleeves that I didn't want, and then that was it done. So that's the neckline, all done, and here's the sneak peek of the sleeves. So that's coming next if you wanna see that. And yeah, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And make sure to click subscribe for more sewing videos, and I'm also going to have some exciting content coming your way very soon. Bye!